Movies and Martinis celebrates women and diversity in the entertainment world
by ranking trending movies, shows, and books
with two completely different perspectives and ranked by delicious martinis.
Listen to find out how many martinis we felt it was worth.
And learn about the women who have written, performed, and/or directed in everything we have rated.
A new episode is available every Thursday on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our podcast. I'm Priya.
And I'm Mercy. Hey, Priya, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm super excited to be here, especially today. Oh, you have a glass.
Wait, Crystal, did you come with a glass?
Well, it's gonna have one now. I have a little coffee.
Okay, that's okay. Sometimes we have coffee. Sometimes we have coffee. I actually have a martini today. Okay, I have my water. I have my water.
Staying hydrated. So, I love it. I love it.
All good. Wait, salud.
Salud.
Cheers.
I love it. Cheers.
Okay.
Oh, wait, it's bad luck if you put it down. I'm not taking a chance on bad luck.
So you guys, if you haven't noticed, we have someone in our screen with us. And today is our latest episode of Books and Martinis. And we are interviewing the amazing Crystal Smith Hall. She's the author of Did You Hear About Kitty Karr? And we were so stoked for this interview. We read this book for our book club, Books and Martinis book club, back in December. And we couldn't wait to talk to you.
Yes, we've been waiting for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, of course. Now, let's kick it off with, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Who is Crystal?
And listeners.
Crystal is a complex person. I've lived a lot of different places. I originally grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was raised bi-coastally between Charlotte and Los Angeles. My dad moved there when I was 7. Let's see. I've lived in Atlanta. I went to Spelman College. I've lived in New York. And I've been back in Los Angeles on and off since 2007.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I would say that's why I'm complex. Like, I've lived a lot of different places. I've met a lot of different people. And I've had to start over a lot. So.
And that's okay. That's what life is, right?
Welcome to our world.
It's about growth. It is about growth.
Growth
Absolutely.
and adventure. Like, it's complete adventure.
Yeah.
So our first question for you is, Did You Hear About Kitty Karr? Has been a major bestseller. It was on REESE'S book club list in 2023. And when we first saw this book, I think it was Mercy who recommended it.
I fell in love with the cover. I was obsessed with the cover. I didn't even know that I wanted to read the book, to be really honest with you. I just loved the cover. And I must have walked in front of it 100 times, and it just always caught my attention. And I bought it because I said, this is the kind of cover, if I ever had a book, this is what I wanted to look like. It was just in your face. It was beautiful. It was elegant. I don't know. I was obsessed with the cover. And then once I read the story, it was like, forget it. It matched. It was it was the whole package. It was amazing.
And we know since then you've updated the cover too. So we'll share the cover in this video in our YouTube video. For our listeners, you want to jump over to YouTube and check it out, you could definitely do that. But it's a beautiful new cover that you guys just redid. And I'm so excited about it. But your book is a multi-generational saga that traverses the glamour of old Hollywood and the seductive draw of modern day showbiz. And that's just like a little tip of it, because there's so much in this book that happens. Yeah. And it's like also a time jump, it's between Kitty Karr and her granddaughter. Granddaughter that's like reading her journal. So why don't you tell us about this book and what inspired you to write it?
And a spoiler alert, if you haven't read the book, maybe read the book and then come back and listen to the podcast. Or if you're okay with spoilers, then you can listen to it and then read it, because the book is complex. It's fantastic. So even after you listen to it, you can read it.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I always people are like, there's one part of the book that's a spoiler, but we'll get into that because I actually disagree. But Kitty Karr It is the story of a woman named Kitty Karr Tate. She is a acclaimed Hollywood actress and has been for years and years and years. When the book starts, she has already passed away, and her granddaughter, now a celebrity in her own right in 2017, is mourning. And she has been left she doesn't know this at the time, but she has been left her next door neighbor's diary. And she soon finds out that her next door neighbor, all of these years, is actually her grandmother, her mother's mother. And the book takes us back in time as we learn like who Kitty Karr is, how she came to be this famous, and where she's really from. So I would say it's part mystery, definitely, historical, like family drama. And I would like to think it has a lot of heart in it. It really is an ode to my great grandmother and my grandmothers. They no longer are with us. They all passed away. My great grandmother and I were very close, and it was really an odd relationship because she died when I was 5. But we were both Virgos, and we had a very, very, very special connection. And when I was in my 20s, I found out some pretty disturbing family news that, regarded her. And Kitty Karr is really the fictionalized portrayal of, me trying to color in the leaves on my family tree and reckon.
A great way of putting that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Because it really is. It's like, it's fiction. Because, when I was going through like my family genealogy and all of that, with African Americans, there is a cutoff point where you just, you don't know. And so this book really was me just like trying to reconcile with all of that and make peace with it.
Wow.
With the information I found out.
Do you feel that in any way that I'm going off script, but
Sure.
in any way, the fact that you were in California gave you the Hollywood inspiration, that vibe of bringing
Absolutely.
Hollywood into it?
Absolutely. I've always been into Hollywood. I used to want to be an actress for a very short time until I got out here and, was trying to act for a year and realized like what it entailed. And then I like quickly realized like, no, you really want to be a writer and behind the scenes. But I've always been interested in the celebrity glare and also kind of what that means for our society, like how celebrities influence society, but also the pressure that they are under. I've always been into like very complex, like complicated, like people. And for me, reading celebrity interviews has always been really insightful and interesting.
Well, you bring it beautifully to the story.
Yes. Thank you.
You do. I felt like I was actually on a red carpet in Hollywood while I was reading.
I have to admit too, like as I was reading it, I kind of preferred Kitty's chapters. Like I kept on being like, okay, can we get through this so I can get back to Kitty?
It's her story. And I appreciate you saying that because, Elise, like she really was written in the vein of a celebrity. Excuse me. So you don't know that much about her, like she does wear a facade. And I think that's part of her like coming out, if you will, is like really being authentic in terms of like who she was, or who she is. But it's, to Elise's credit, it was very hard for her to be authentic, raised in, the family that she was.
Now, how long did it take you to write this book? Tell us about the process.
Yes, I have been writing this book for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, like I was in screenwriting for a little bit and, trying to get a script done and out there. And while I really liked screenwriting because I do like, I literally like write in pictures. And so screenwriting was like a natural kind of thing. But I realized in terms of like, okay, making a career in what I actually wanted to do, that novel writing was something I could really like sink my teeth into. So, making that transition to screenwriting, from screenwriting and journalism. I worked in journalism for about 3 years and literally the same conclusion that I came to with screenwriting. And, just started like trying to write a novel. You know, the early drafts were terrible. They were like bullet points and, you know, moving things around. And I think
editing.
oh yeah. But
I
see,
hate
the
editing.
but it is the writing for me, you know, like that messy, like, I don't know where this is gonna go. And, you know,
Part of the
just,
creative.
yeah, like being in the weeds of it, you know.
Right.
But eventually I do think that the story reveals itself to you. I know you two ladies are both writing books, and I wonder if you have, you know, kind of those same feelings. Because even if like you have like a plot outline, which I always did, like sometimes I would be writing and I have my plot outline, and then I'm like reading back and making edit notes, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, like, let me like change this, like this plot really wants to go this way. And so it's about me being flexible and kind of intuitively feeling my way through it, is what I'll say.
Yes.
Because I didn't
cursing at it.
yeah, I didn't always know what the story was, to be honest with
I
you.
know. It is. It's such a process, such a creative process, and it's emotional, and it's therapeutic, and it's aggravating, and it has just so many feels, right?
It does. And sometimes, like, you know, you get a little in despair because you're like, is this story going to work out? Like, I don't know where this is going.
That's how I feel
Well,
right now about so I'm on my second book, you know, because I
Okay.
finished the first one
Yes.
and I've been pitching it, but that's how I feel about my second one right now. I'm like so mad at it right now. It's like, what am I doing? Where's this going?
Yeah.
This
It just
is
wants to see your
Crystal's proof.
commitment. Yeah. Yeah. It wants to see your commitment. That's what I say.
Oh, I like
Aw.
that. I like that.
And who's your favorite character? Would it be Kitty Karr?
No, actually, well, I do love Kitty, but my favorite character in terms of my emotional connection would be Hazel. Because
Okay.
I think Hazel's really the backbone of Kitty Karr, even though she's, you know, really only there for a short time in the actual narrative. She really is the reason, you know, not just because she birthed her, but she's the reason, you know, Kitty Karr became Kitty Karr. And I think the selflessness that she displayed as a
The
mother.
sacrifice.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was hard.
Yeah, that was the ultimate sacrifice as a mother.
the ultimate sacrifice. And I'm not a mother, but I could only imagine how horrible, you know, that would be to lose your child like that. And want to, you know,
Right.
like,
Yeah, be purposeful about it. But you may not be a mother, but you did that beautifully
Thank
because
you.
yeah,
Thank you.
you feel it through the story. So it was great. I personally loved Kitty's husband.
You know, I've heard that before.
I loved how he loved her, how unconditionally he loved her. And when I found out in the book that he knew about the baby, I was like, oh, I love him. I love him. Oh my God. So he was just, it was true love. And
I think it was. As I will say this, as true as Nathan could be, because I love Nathan too. And I don't think any of my characters are all good or all bad, but I do argue in terms, and tell me what you think about this, in terms of Nathan, I really do think that he did love her conditionally, right? It was based on like her being this person that he wanted her to be. And I don't think that he was willing to sacrifice like his comforts, right, for the truth. I wonder.
right. You wonder because there were times that he could have, but it was safer not to, right?
Correct.
But then that's the human in us.
It is
always to pick the safety net, never to push the envelope, because you're in this bubble and you're comfortable.
Yeah, and he had his own struggles and his own points to prove because of what had been given to him and the challenges that he was facing with redoing everything and bringing like fresh thoughts and ideas and lifting up the whole business again. So it was beautifully said.
Now, talking about Nathan and Hazel, you touch upon, well, colorism is a huge part of this book. And old Hollywood and Kitty Karr being mixed, both black and white. Tell us about that thinking. What brought you to that part of the book? What made it so important for you to talk about that?
Okay, so one of my favorite movies, like all time, is The Imitation of Life, the 1954 version, I believe, or 1955 version, with Lana Turner and Juanita Moore. I watched that movie when I was way too young, like 5, 6, 7 years old. And the woman, Juanita, Annie was her character name, reminded me of my great grandmother. So I was very attached to that movie when I was younger, because I couldn't fathom, you know, how Sarah Jane like left her mother, and then, you know, comes back years later and she's like already dead. So that movie had a huge impression on me when I was growing up, and I think I've always been not interested in passing in terms of like, oh, okay, I thought I could or I wanted to, but growing up in the South, colorism for me was always a huge issue. And even, yeah, I'm light skinned, but I've definitely met, you know, lighter skinned Black women now that I'm older, and I'm not the lightest, like, you know,
So many shades.
Correct. There's so many shades, but in the South, you know, my color was a big deal, and I was always being asked if I was mixed. So it was very, you know, the colorism and, you know, how the genes come together has always been very interesting to me. And so that's the connection there.
Okay, you did that beautifully. And because you dropped some names like Lana Turner, if and when your book becomes a movie, who
Yes.
would you
Yes.
envision being Kitty Karr?
You know, I'm not sure. I think we'd really have to search for a very special actress, because I would want that actress to actually be Black. That's, you know, my requirement. Definitely, like for the roles of the women who are passing in this book, I think it's like very important. So I don't know. I definitely think that it would be an amazing role for a very like special actress. So we shall see. I'm definitely open.
I love, well, we can't wait to see what who you pick for the
Right.
role.
If it's up to me.
If it's up to you, right. And so that takes me to another actress. And
Yes.
I'm sorry, Priya, I'm totally taking
Go
over
ahead.
here. But how did it feel when you found out that you had been chosen as the book of the month to Reese Witherspoon?
It was amazing. My editor
What's that
called
feeling
me.
like?
What was the feeling like? I screamed.
I think anybody would scream.
Yeah, I screamed, because like whenever you get a call like from your editor, like, because usually it's an email or, you know, can you talk, or a scheduled meeting. So when your editor calls you out of the blue, like it's already like makes your heart stop. Like, what's wrong? You know?
What happened?
Yeah. And that's the first thing I said. I was like, is everything okay? And she was like, yeah, are you by yourself? And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong? Like, you know, like what tell me. And she was like, well, sit down, you know, everything's okay. I just have some exciting news. And I literally just screamed, because I didn't even know that like my book was going to be, you know, going out to the book clubs. Like, I think on purpose, this is very smart in my opinion, but I think that they, especially maybe with first time authors, they don't give you all of the information so that you like aren't overwhelmed or nervous or anticipating, right? So it was a huge shock, and really special for me to get that news from my editor, where we have a really
wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so from again, Solana Rohio, Priya, what has been your highest high after the book was published? Like, what do you feel like, wow, this was a wow moment? Was that it? Or did you have a bigger moment than that?
Well, I mean, listen, Reese's Book Club, that was a huge honor. And then I found out I got Book of the Month as well. So that was exciting. I would say the most amazing moment for me actually just occurred in March. I went to the Lexington Book Festival, in North Carolina in March, and both of my parents were there, and my parents are divorced and have been since I was 5. And so that for me was the most
everything.
special. It really was.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Kind of getting that stamp of approval, like, listen, I wasn't crazy. Look, see, the book is doing really well.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Because my mom has always
Oh.
been like, you know, into the creative, but my dad, you know, was hardcore like
Mm,
businessman. And
Mm.
so he was always like, well, like,
That's fun, but that's a hobby, right? They don't look at it
well,
like
he never
get a
said
real
the word,
job.
he never said the word hobby, but he was like, well, you don't have any kids and, you know, you're not married. And so you have a lot of time on your hands, you know, you can do
Mm.
both. It was, and he was right. He was right.
mhm.
But just, you know, having my dad's approval was, you know, was huge.
Wow.
That's
And I
beautiful.
know that must have felt so amazing to have that. And talking about being a first time author, what kind of advice would you give authors that are, or people just writing and working on their first,
Inspiring.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, aspiring
Yeah.
authors?
Right. Mhm.
Keep going is the biggest advice. I know people always say that, but I cannot impress that upon people enough. Um, Definitely keep going and, you know, keep what you're doing to yourself until you're truly like ready to share. Because people who are not creative, they don't understand.
Mm,
And I think it can be very hard for a creative person to take the advice of people who aren't creatives. You
yeah.
know,
That's
it's like
excellent.
this is, yeah, it's like the creative field, you really just have to trust your own intuition because no one can like give you the answers in this field. They just can't, you know, with any type of like art. You don't know how it's going to play out. So keep going and trust your own intuition to a fault, I would say.
Yeah. And you know, I've
Mhm.
heard that a lot. I've heard other authors tell me, do what you feel, do what you feel.
Go with the
You know,
gut.
that's been
Mhm.
like the main theme. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You have to follow your intuition and your gut.
You do, but it's
Did
hard to know what you feel when you know, have so many other opinions. So
and
that's
you're
what I'm
all over the place.
correct. It's like, you know, like, yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta be very protective over your art.
Yeah. Absolutely. And did you find that you had more inspiration, or let me not even go to the inspiration aspect of it, but the discipline aspect of it?
Mhm.
We just interviewed Ron Felber, and he was telling us that he wakes up like first thing in the morning, and that's the first thing he does. And he wakes up really early
Mhm.
and writes, and then he kind of goes on about his day. Did you find any type of rhythm that you kind of followed
Yes.
that you would
I
now use for the next book?
Yep. I am with him on that. I prefer to write like when I'm actually in writing mode. I like to do 1,700 words a day. I did like National Novel Writing Month, like kind of all the time, sometimes just to like get words on paper. And so when I'm in that mode, I get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and, you know, bang out those 1,700 words. My editing process, you know, is way different in terms of, you know, I call the editing like when I'm printing a manuscript and, you know, out with my Sharpies, not my Sharpies, but my highlighters and, you know, my pens and pencils. That's my editing process. And I like to like, I'm like wherever, like on the couch, on the floor, in the bed, like, you know, I always have to work with the TV on. Even when I'm, you know, writing at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I need some noise around me.
Me too. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you
Ne-
write to? Do you like do music or like TV shows?
Personally, I love to have music playing in the background. If
Okay.
I wake up like today, I woke up at 6. So if I wake up really early, I'll put something like the Today Show and I'll
Hmm.
have it playing in the background, but I'm not listening to it, but it is there. So I
Yeah.
kind of drift and go back and forth. But unlike Priya, so Priya's writing, what would you consider yours? A fantasy book?
Sci-fi, fantasy,
Like
romance.
fantasy. Mine is a
Oh,
memoir.
okay.
So I go back in time. So I have to sit there and think and think and think, okay, you know, was I 7 or was I 5? And wait a second, I'm on this chapter and I'm 10 years old, but in the last chapter, I was 12. So my timeline's off. So I have to, it's a lot of personal recollection and going back and trying to remember things. And I think when you're writing, it's so therapeutic in a great way because you're letting it go by putting it on paper. But at the same time, you're revisiting places that you kind of closed the doors to because it was easier with that door closed. So I keep opening doors. And I find that drains me. I'll be, I'm going to sit here for 5 hours. And then half an hour in, I'm like, I'm done. I'm over it. And so it's taken me a long time to get to where I want to be. But now I have a goal. And it took, I have 3 girls, 3 daughters. And my youngest daughter, they're constantly asking me, well, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Are you done? Are you almost done? Are you halfway? And I told her, well, I really haven't, but I was going back and forth. And she goes, well, the problem is you're your own boss. So you keep giving yourself breaks. She goes, so maybe the boss of you needs to be a little bit more like when you had your business and you were a boss.
And I keep on telling you, you need to block out the world and just focus. Yeah.
Yes. So she told me, boss yourself better. And I'm like,
oh, I like
all
that.
right. Yeah. So I'm bossing myself better. So now I actually have a deadline. And I said it. I told the people that I'm giving my book to, like my ARCs, when they're getting it.
Okay.
And one of them is it's a best-selling author, and I already put it out there. So that's the pressure I gave myself. So now, it's gonna happen.
I love that. That's really good. I love that.
I had to because I would have kept going.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you almost like have to cut yourself off.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have that pressure on the first book. I mean, I definitely have it now working on the second. And I think for me, like the boss on the first one was like my actual 9-to-5 job because like I had to work around that. So it was like, I don't really care if you're tired, Crystal, like you got to be at work at 9 o'clock. So you're either going to write now or you're going to write later. You're either going to stay home this weekend and like not go out with your friends or, like I literally would sometimes like take vacation days to write.
There's so much
I could see
discipline.
that.
So much
I
discipline.
can see that. Again, going back to Ron, who we interviewed, and he again is a best-selling author. He had a 9-to-5 job, and he said that he would wake up like at 4 a.m. and write because by 8 he had to be out and take a train. He was in New York, and he had to take a train and get to work and all that good stuff. I was like, geez.
Yeah.
So, and who else did we just interview? Priya.
Jessica.
We just interviewed Jessica with 2 little kids.
She's a teacher.
And she's a teacher and a wife.
I don't know how she manages that brain power.
And she wrote her book in no time.
See,
no time. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm such a loser. What the hell?
That was her first draft, Mercy. That was her first draft.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like way older, so I'm retired. I have all the time in the world, and sometimes that's even harder than having the pressure of I need to do it. Okay, Crystal, I was dying to ask you. You kind of mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you're working on your second book, and I'm like really excited to hear what it's all about. Tell me something about it, even a little bit.
Absolutely. So it's about corporate America in the 80s and the effects of racism in the workplace on a person's life and their family.
Wow. So is it historical fiction? Like, did you hear about Kitty Karr or?
Well, no, because I don't really, are the 80s historical fiction at this point? I'm not sure as time moves on. I mean, but if that could be, if the 80s are historical fiction, then I would say yes.
Well, it definitely is. I mean, for all the Gen Zers and
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I feel like,
I worked in corporate America in the 80s.
See?
So you know.
Yeah. I got married in 85. Yeah, 1985, I got married. I was 19.
Okay.
And I worked corporate America for years until not for years, for maybe 6 years before I actually opened my own business, which was a preschool. And I had that for 26 years.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, corporate America, it's an interesting place. It is. And,
it was rough.
Yeah.
It was really rough. For a woman, it was hard. For a Hispanic woman, it was hard. And that's that I was in Miami. It wasn't like, I was in another state. Miami had a lot of Hispanics at the time, but it was very hard.
Oh, I believe it. You know, corporate America is just a microcosm for the world, right? And for America.
Absolutely.
So it's been interesting to write. It's definitely been hard to write emotionally, but it has been definitely worth it and an interesting process.
Well,
Are
we
you
can't-
finding it easier because you already wrote a book to write a second one, or is it a whole new beast?
It's harder in a different way, is what I will say, because I know what the story is. So I don't have that issue in terms of like in Kitty Karr, kind of literally waiting for the story to come. But the emotions are stronger in this book.
Oh, wow.
What inspired you?
My family. Yeah,
Oh.
my parents. Yeah, that's the inspiration. So it's, you know, the inspiration is close to home. And then also like my own experiences in corporate America, like in my short, like kind of stints there as well. My mom also, like watching her, you know, like my dad's career, but then also my mom as a single mother working in corporate America. They were always both in sales. And, you know, she worked in sales, like pharmaceutical sales when my brother was younger. And then, you know, she was selling like car phones, like, you know, in the early 90s, late 80s. And, you know, a lot of other things like since then. And both of them were very successful in sales. But that doesn't mean, you know, that it wasn't
easier.
It was good. Yeah. Now,
Correct.
do you feel more pressure with the second book because Kitty Karr did so well?
Yes, I definitely do, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. Like I'm embracing the pressure because at the end of the day, like, you know, this is my career and, you know, I do want it to be the best book that it can be. And I also, you know, do want to give readers something that they can really like sink their teeth into. So yes, I do feel the pressure, but it's all good. You know?
That was going to be my next question. Do you feel like this is it? This is your calling in life. You are now officially a writer. Like that. This is what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, all I want to do is write books.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's how I feel too. I want this to be it.
Yeah.
But of course we still have to make money in the meantime. Like writing is not, the actual writing is not going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Now, talking about readers, our book club members sent in questions and we chose one for you. And this is from Lori in our book club. And she asks, I had never heard of crossing over before the book. Did you have family that crossed over, or did you learn through research more about the topic?
Hi, Lori. I do not have anybody in my actual blood family that I know of that passed. One of my aunt's husbands, my uncle, I had asked him about that before, you know, in terms of his family. His family is from Louisiana. And so he did actually like have a story that was pretty interesting. I don't want to share it because it's not my story. But really like the whole, you know, passing topic, I think I explained was, you know, really my interest in the movie, The Imitation of Life, and just, you know, my background. So no, but the, you know, the part of passing that is connected to my family, you know, is sexual violence, right? So I really was thinking about, you know, kind of the other side of that passing coin, like what is it like for the mother, you know, having a child that is, you know, could pass for white, like how does that feel to the mother?
Yeah,
right.
Of that child.
So deep.
Very intense. Yeah. So we've covered so much in this interview, and we want to thank you so much for being.
I still have one question for you.
Oh my God! Go ahead.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I've been waiting. I'm like her #1 fan. I'm always on Instagram, either
That's why I'm letting you have the floor. Just do it.
Thank you. Like I love her. Okay. So tell me your inspiration about your book cover, because that's how I was captured into your story.
Both book covers. Both, because there's a new one that's right here in this video. Tell us about both.
Well, I have to give a huge shout out to my team at Holt. I didn't have much to do with my cover. I really relied like on their expertise. And so they came back with the first cover and like we made a couple of adjustments, but you know, they really thought that it brought like the drama, and I did too, in terms of like really being aligned with, you know, the celebrity, you know, kind of angle and the intrigue. So I have to thank them for that, because they're like, the marketing team over there is just amazing. And the second cover really was the same, you know, process. Like, we got a few like options back, and I really fell in love with the colors in the paperback and like the sunset. And, you know, I would like to say that the person on the cover in the paperback is actually Hazel, like starting on this journey.
Oh, I got goosebumps just now. Oh, yeah.
So that's, you know, in my head, that's who is on the paperback. And then Elise is actually who is, I'm turning because I have it on my wall. Elise is actually depicted on the paperback and like dressed more in Kitty's like 1960s, 1950s style.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Okay, I'm not going to bombard you anymore. So
no, it's okay.
anything about you that you would love our listeners to know about you? Like anything you want to share about yourself?
That's a really hard question, because there's, well, I don't know. I work out a lot. I mean,
yes.
I don't know if that's like a revolutionary thing at all, but
that's a Priya thing.
Yeah, I work out all the time.
Okay. So it's like a piece of me in the book is actually the Tracy Anderson method. I have been obsessed with that workout for like over 10 years. Like, it has really gotten me through like the writing process, honestly. So it's, you know, that method is incredibly special to me for my creativity. A lot of ideas come to me when I'm on the mat. So that's like an interesting tidbit, that it definitely is a real part.
That's interesting.
You know,
and that's part of your process too. So that's, that's important to share. That's what you do.
It is.
Love that.
So again, thank you. Do you have any more questions, Mercy?
I mean, I do, but hello.
I just want to say I love this interview. Like, you guys have been great.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
And of course, for your second book, we want you back on.
Yeah,
I'm done.
We want you back on.
Done.
Yeah. Before, during, and after.
And bring your martini.
Okay, no, for sure. For sure. I'll make an espresso martini next time.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with those. I just had one last night. If anybody follows me, every single story of mine has it, because I had it somewhere somehow. Oh, I had one last night. It's so good.
So we also love the fact of how accessible you are as an author, and how can our I was about to say readers, how can our listeners and viewers find you or communicate with you? Do you have a website? How can they get in touch with you?
Yes, I do have a website, but I'm mostly on Instagram. So it's just at csmithpaul. I do respond to DMs and, you know, comments and all of that. I love seeing it. So feel free to hit me up anytime.
Thank you so much for being our guest today for our Books and Martinis episode. If you're listening or you're viewing this YouTube video, please like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. Check out Crystal's book, now available wherever you find your favorite books, and in audio, right? It's also available in audio.
It is.
We love audiobooks. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us today, Crystal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I had a blast.
Oh, thank you.